Soprano C, we like to keep it on the high note. It's levels to it, you and I know. Tell them be humble. Sit down. 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 Who that just gotta hate them for. I feel something so wrong. Doing the right thing. I couldn't lie. Everything that kills me makes me feel alive. I've been living, mad about the things that we could be. Baby, I've been praying hard. There's no more counting dollars, we'll be counting stars.
Day and night, I toss and turn, I keep stressing my mind. I look for peace, but see I don't attain. What I need for keeps this silly game we play. Now look at this. Madness, the magnet keeps attracting me. I try to run, but see I'm not that fast. I think I'm first, but surely finish last. Cause day and night, the lonely stoner seems to free his mind at night. He's all alone through the day and night.
Crush a bit, little bit, roll it up, take a hit, feeling lit, feeling right, 2 a.m. summer night, I don't care, hand on the wheel, driving drunk, I'm doing my thing, rolling the mid beside and now, living my life, getting out dreams, people told me slow my roll, I'm screaming out that I'ma do just what I want, looking ahead, no turning back, if I fall, if I die, know I lived it to the fullest, if I fall, if I die, know I lived and missed some bullets. I'm on the pursuit of happiness, and I know everything that shine ain't always gonna be gold.
Good evening, everybody. It's Sharpe Review. Felix Sharpe at Sharpe Review on Twitter for Campus2Canton.com. It's been so long since I've done the intro. I think I'm a little nervous. I'm not pushing the right buttons. I don't even know if you're in the chat. Let me know if you can actually hear me. Man, what a great time for college fantasy football. I want to get into Cal's early outlook in fantasy for 2026. Some of you may be longtime listeners, subscribers to Campus2Canton, our podcast feed, the website. And so I've been gone for a little while. Some of you might be new to the channel and didn't know that you can play college fantasy football. You can. Check out Campus2Canton.com. For those who have been long-time subscribers to the site, to what it is that we do, I'm back. I know it's been a while. I don't want to be presumptuous and think that my absence has been noticed, but if it has, I'm back. I believe in this mission of bringing college fantasy football to the mainstream. I believe in the company, and just being completely honest, I missed you guys. I missed the feedback. I missed takes. I missed the tailgate during the season, doing the morning show, doing the recap show at night. And, it's funny. I went to a Tony Robbins. I didn't go to it. It was a virtual Tony Robbins event earlier this year to start the year. And I had never done a Tony Robbins thing before. And I don't know that I'll ever do another one because some of that stuff was kind of hokey. But there's one thing that he said that made a lot of sense to me, is that human beings are designed to create, and when you're creating, you feel fulfilled. And, that could be, art or something. But for me, creating is this. Creating is talking to you guys. Creating is creating content. Creating is, to be honest, is building businesses. And that's one way I feel fulfilled. In my absence, I still love the game of football, still loved what the company was doing, and, talk to the guys about coming back. And so I'm here. Maybe we'll get more into that. I'm trying to think of what this looks like moving forward. And this is what I want to do more often, is just jump on the mic, go live, and talk to you one-on-one, because I've lost count of, it's 130 plus, it's over 140 plus FBS teams. Caleb Hawkins came out of nowhere for us last year. Can we catch those guys between now and our supplemental drafts? Can we catch those guys? College fantasy football, whether you're playing Devy, C2C, CFF, redraft, dynasty, it's in a really good place. And I honestly miss being with you. So we're going to cover Cal. I'm thinking that moving forward, we probably need to do more than one of these. I feel behind having stepped out of content creation for a little bit. And so there's a mantra that I've started to live by, and that is, the secret is there are no secrets. It can apply to fitness, it can apply to life, it can apply to studying for a test. The secret is there are no secrets. So in order to get where we need to be by the time you're in your Campus2Canton supplemental drafts, or you're in those underdog best ball drafts come the summertime, is we got to put in some work. We got to put in some work to know where everybody's at, how to value everybody, and that sort of thing. And I want to start with Cal because, quite frankly, I'm a Jaron Kiawe-Sagapua fan. I think he's in Campus2Canton. I think he's the number one quarterback by far. And I've heard some top 10 quarterback lists that include players like John Mateer and Josh Hoover. And, those are fine players. But I think that JKS showed last season that he has the highest ceiling in college football. So I want to start there with Cal. Before we get too far, I want to mention that the Campus2Canton Freshman Guide, the 5th volume, speaking of doing your homework, it's available right now at Campus2Canton.com. I left a link in the description box, and you can go ahead and check that out. If it's your first time playing college fantasy football, if you're playing C2C for the first time, it's a great product to get your hands on to get introduced to this 2026 freshman class. And if you're a longtime subscriber to the website, I mean, you know that it's a one-of-a-kind product, a super unique product. So go ahead and pick up the 2026 freshman guide. I don't know how long these are going to be. We're going to just give me some grace because these are going to be my practice reps. You got to do them live. This is the preseason for me. We got to do them live. I got to get back into the rhythm of talking to you guys. Before we start talking about Cal, I do want to mention how the last couple of days have been for me, because for a couple of reasons, the last couple of days have been super, super fulfilling, to be honest with you. On Thursday and Friday, I got to tour the On3 campus there in Nashville. And it's been announced, longtime friend of the company, Alan True, who I went to college with, he made the jump from 24/7 to On3. And so I got to hang out with him down there and meet some of the staff and administration, including Shannon Terry. Shannon Terry, if you don't know who that is, I mean, he's one of the 5 most influential people in college sports, period. Hired Josh Pate, hired J.D. Pickell. I mean, all of these people that you see in college football recruiting at one time have worked for Shannon Terry, started Rivals first, sold Rivals, bought it back like Dave Portnoy, started 24/7, and now started On3. I do want to talk about that conversation just a little bit. But congratulations to Alan. Congratulations to Brandon Huffman going over to On3. You see what it is that they're doing. On3, this is speculation, by the way. With all the people going over to On3 from 24/7, they are stripping the assets of that CBS Paramount product and give me 5 years, On3 will be purchasing 24/7. On3 is going to be purchasing 24/7. Brett, thank you, man. Appreciate you coming back. Appreciate you. You've always been a long-time supporter. So let me talk about this trip a little bit. Alan was going down there, and I always told him, hey, if you're ever going to Nashville, let me know, and I'll link up with you. And I did. I got to spend the Thursday and Friday last week with the guys there and Taylor at On3. Just those are your people, and you're just talking ball with people, bringing up old names. It was just a fun time, man. Just super down to earth people that are obviously, us being college fantasy football people, the recruiting staff there at On3 is as dialed in as anyone into rankings and college football players. So we were just talking ball for 2 days, basically. We were just talking ball for 2 days. And if you know anything about me, if you followed me for any amount of time, I've mentioned Shannon Terry's name, dozens of times, if not more, over the course of 5 years of doing content creation. When it comes to independent entrepreneurs in college football, there's Shannon Terry, and then I don't even know who the close second would be. You could say like Josh Pate, I guess, but Shannon Terry is Josh Pate is like an owner. Josh Pate is like Shaq, and Shannon Terry is the Bus family. If Shannon Terry woke up with Josh Pate's net worth tomorrow, he'd pass out. Okay? I just have a ton of respect for what if you don't know who Shannon Terry is, the message board culture in college football, he created that. He created that. That culture that is following college football coaches' private plane flight plans in the sky, that's the culture that Shannon Terry created. Of course, he's partnered with Josh Pate now, who just interviewed we speak about his influence. One of his partners just interviewed the president of the United States. and then J.D. Pickell, and then created On 3. Basically, the third time that he's done this has created a culture. I actually have, let's see, I have some pictures here. Look, there we go. We got to talk to him. Very, very cool meeting Shannon Terry. Super down to earth. We talked about the future of college football and what direction we think it's going. He talked to me about their business model and their company pillars, his motivation. I mean, just a super down to earth guy. And again, I sent him a letter 4 years ago saying, hey, we're Campus2Canton. This is what we do. And getting the opportunity to meet him was really, really special for me. Guess what? I also got to do this. I got to sit in the chair. I got to sit in the chair of probably the most influential on-air talent in college football. You know what's funny about seeing everything that they do is that, of course, there is a lot of money and investment in what they do, but logistically, it's super similar to what I've ran into Pete Nakos, Charles Power, these guys sitting in almost like a library setting in the office, and they're just writing. They got multiple windows up. It's kind of quiet in there, and they're just writing. And then you go into the studio space, and they've got wires and stuff everywhere, just like we do. It's more expensive wires, more expensive cameras, but it's structurally, it's very, very similar to what it is that we do. All that to say is it was a super energizing trip and really an unexpected trip to share down there in Nashville. And I just appreciate those guys for having let me come down and visit. All right. Check out the Campus2Canton Freshman Guide. It's available now. Again, the link is in the description box. Let's get to Cal. Let's get to Cal, okay? Like I said, the secret is there are no secrets. So if we're going to be ready for freshman drafts come spring, after spring ball, we got to know who people are. And I'm starting with Cal because I think JKS, for me, QB1. Can I do this? Let's share the screen. Let's share the screen while I talk over JKS just balling out of control. There we go. All right, so this first season at Cal, there were some ups and downs, but the maturity that I saw for a freshman quarterback throwing to defensive backs who had their backs turned, anticipating windows, being aggressive downfield. The only freshman, and he wasn't even a freshman, the only player that I could think of who was this mature as a passer to start was Tua Tagovailoa that second year. Because remember that first year he was backing up Jalen Hurts, and then he came in the halftime of the championship game. But as far as just being able to put the ball anywhere, and I'll tell you one area where I think JKS was super mature was in the red zone when everything was compressed. I went to the Louisville game. Obviously, I'm here in Louisville. The Louisville game, he throws the game-winning touchdown to Jacob DeJesus on the left side of the end zone. I mean, they were at the 3-yard line. Just what he can do with a compressed field, super impressive. And what he can do being aggressive downfield, super impressive. I thought that outside of Mason Minnie and Jacob DeJesus in the slot last year, Cal's outside wide receivers last year, horrible. Tron Grizel, sorry. Bad. And so, of course, they've revamped this offense. But for my money, JKS is quarterback 1. Now, I'm still getting my rankings together, but that's not going to change. I don't know who's going to be quarterback 2, Arch Manning, Bryce Underwood, those are some candidates, but it's JKS number 1 because of the maturity he showed as a passer in year 1. And you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Joe Burrow if Joe Burrow had better arm talent. That's who he reminds me of. I mentioned Tua Tagovailoa. It's hard. I mean, I know you got Polynesian quarterbacks from Hawaii, left-handed. It's easy to compare him to Tua Tagovailoa, but I don't even think Tua had, the physical skill set that JKS has. Remember Tua when Tyreek Hill first got to Miami and everybody was making fun of Tua because of that ball floating in the air? I don't think that we see that from Jaron Kiawe-Sagapua-Tele right here, just, throwing a laser over to the left sideline. I was listening to I was thinking to myself, am I going to call out content creators when I disagree with their takes, or am I just going to subtweet their thoughts? And I'm thinking I'm going to call them out here. I love the Cover 3 guys. Chip, Danny Cannell, Tom Fernelli, Bud Elliott. I love those guys. But they did a top 10 quarterback episode here this past week, and it did not include Jaron Kiawe-Sagapua-Tele. Now, Chip mentioned him during the show as though, one garnering votes. But to not think that he's a top 10 quarterback in the country, at this point, we're going to pick out Josh Hoover because he's going to Indiana. I mean, Josh Hoover, I don't know that his season last year was any better than what JKS did last year. So for my money, JKS is quarterback 1, and he will be quarterback 1. Now, I mentioned before, I thought last year their outside wide receivers just terrible. And so how do they replace them? That was a big question for me last year. As a matter of fact, I was tweeting, who was JKS going to be throwing to? That was a big question for me. And it wasn't until late in the cycle. They get Ian Strong, the transfer from Rutgers, and they get Chase Hendricks, the transfer from Ohio. Now, I want to break down both of these guys. Ian Strong and KJ Duff at Rutgers. I like both of them as college football players. I think that they are a tad bit underrated. Ian Strong, good player. He's going to be better than what they had last year on the outside, but he reminds me a little bit, if you remember South Carolina wide receiver Antoine Wells, who transferred up from JMU, not a super explosive player, but a reliable player, or a player like Dorian Singer at Arizona State, and before he transferred to USC. That's what Ian Strong's ceiling reminds me of. So I think he's going to be a good player for the offense. If I have him in a C2C league and someone thinks that there's NFL potential there, I would gladly trade Ian Strong if they think he's going to be, some guy that has an explosive season here in 2026 and then launches himself into the NFL draft conversation for 2027. I don't think that that's the outcome for Ian Strong. I just don't think that he's an explosive player. I've seen that conversation out there a little bit. I disagree with it wholeheartedly. I think KJ Duff might be a better player, but even only slightly. He's similar stylistically to what he could do, a big possession wide receiver, and that's just not what the NFL does anymore. If I'm in CFF, I'm thinking Ian Strong is probably top 50. Full FBS, probably top 50. If we're talking Power 4 only, a little bit higher than that, maybe 30 or something like that. But, he's probably going to be a wide receiver 4 for me. He's probably going to be a wide receiver 4. The player that I think we should be excited about is Chase Hendricks, because Chase Hendricks had 88% slot percentage last season. And so I fully expect him to, take the Jacob DeJesus role there for Cal. He's going to be in the slot. Jacob DeJesus had 119 receptions last season. I got to sit next to Jacob DeJesus's, I think his cousins last year at the Louisville game. Very nice family from Texas, and they told me about Jacob DeJesus's story, and nobody recruiting him out of high school. I think he went to JUCO. He's from the Texas area, I believe. Smaller, he's 5'7". I think he was married. He's already has a wife. I want to say he's in his 23, 24, something like that. But this is the guy who's going to play that role. Chase Hendricks is going to play that role. Chase Hendricks, a little bit more of a vertical game, doing a lot of double moves from the slot, similar to Tylan Wallace. If you remember Tylan Wallace from Mike Gundy, Chase Hendricks doing a lot of that stuff, not as explosive as Tylan Wallace before Tylan Wallace had the ACL injury, but similar style player coming out the slot. You don't see a lot of slot players doing things in the vertical game. So I really like this addition as a replacement for Jacob DeJesus, who was one of JKS's really two safety blankets last year. I'm thinking I don't have my rankings all the way together yet, okay? But it doesn't take very long until you get to the guys who are going to be really CFF only, who are not premier NFL players. And when I'm ranking these guys, like, it doesn't take me very long to get to Chase Hendricks. So only having ranked, I don't know, let's say 50% of the FBS field, the FBS field that's going to matter in the top 30, I think Chase Hendricks is going to be there. I think Chase Hendricks is going to be there because, again, now they have a new offensive coordinator in Cal. I didn't think the offensive coordinator was a problem. Harsin, I didn't think Harsin was a problem last year. I thought that their skill positions outside of Minnie and DeJesus were the problem. But I think that Chase Hendricks is going to be a top 30 wide receiver, and regardless of format. If we're talking underdog, easily top 20 in my opinion, as I can project right now. If we're talking underdog and that's power 4 only, best ball, I think that he's going to be top 20. Now let's go here to this is the interesting thing. And Brett mentions in the chat that Cal's tight ends are good. Yes, Cal's tight ends are good. This is why I think Chase Hendricks could have a problem, is because they have two options here that could be coming in the middle that could force Chase Hendricks outside. Let me just say what I mean here. So Mason Minnie, who was there in Cal last year, we know that he's a good player. I mean, he was a freshman last year, and I can't remember his statistics, but he did very well. But they bring in Dorian Thomas. If you want to know about Dorian Thomas, just go watch what he did to Michigan last year in that opening game, where it wasn't quite an App State situation, but New Mexico was in that damn game really late, and I gained a lot of respect for both Dorian Thomas, who had 11, 71, and 2 in that game. They could not cover him, and the quarterback who was getting hit. I can't remember the quarterback's name. He was getting smashed in the chin, and was still delivering the ball downfield. Like New Mexico was closer than they should have been late in that game, and a lot of that had to do with Dorian Thomas. If you're not a college fantasy football player, you didn't know that he was one of the best tight ends in the country. He's also a fourth-year player. I think he redshirted in 2022, then 2023, 2024, and then 2025, his best season. For some reason, I think he's still a sophomore. I don't know how that works. But he's going into his fourth year. So not only do you have Mason Minnie, who was just good as a freshman, but you add Dorian Thomas, who is more of a veteran presence and was a great pass outlet there at New Mexico last year. And I don't think that they bring him in unless they have a plan to use him. This is my concern, though. To what extent do we see a lot of 21 personnel for Cal going into next season? 2 tight ends, 1 running back. Because if you're talking about putting the best 11 on the field, it's not going to be a third wide receiver for Cal. It's going to be those 2 tight ends, Ian Strong and Chase Hendricks. So if Chase Hendricks is basically playing an outside wide receiver and Dorian Thomas and Mason Minnie are on the line as tight ends, that presents a little bit of a problem really for all three of them because they kind of cannibalize the area where they would be most successful. The two tight ends in the middle, Chase Hendricks playing out of position in the outside. That's something that I want to watch in the spring is to what extent are they running 11 personnel? To what extent are they running 21 personnel? And I think the running backs actually have something to do with that. We can get into that. But yes, they have an excellent tight end room for it to be, outside of the SEC or Big Ten. I don't think that people would think, hey, this ACC team, Cal, has a good tight end room. It has a damn good tight end room between Mason Minnie and Dorian Thomas. But the thing is though, Mason Minnie is probably already rostered in C2C leagues. In CFF, I don't want a tight end that's going to be splitting time. So I'm probably not drafting him there. And in Underdog, it's the same thing. Like, I'm not confident that either one of those guys is going to be the primary target, and I can look elsewhere. So I think that people may have been inclined to take Mason Minnie, if you're looking from last year going into this year. But I think the addition of Dorian Thomas, who's an older player, a more experienced player, I would be a little bit cautious. I would be a little bit cautious about them. And again, I want to know, are they running 11 personnel? Who's the third wide receiver going to be? Because all these people transferred or they're gone. They're wide receivers, that is. They brought in Cooper Perry. Cooper Perry had 11 receptions for 25 yards last year for Oregon. So he's the third wide receiver that they bring in as a transfer. Is he going to be on the field over Mason Minnie or Dorian Thomas? As I sit here right now, I'm not sure. So that's something that I would want to watch in spring ball. When I say 21 personnel, think about the old Peyton Manning teams in Indianapolis where they would have two tight ends on the field and they would run those stretch plays, and you would have Marvin Harrison running an over route and somebody running a post and Dallas Clark running something out there. It gives the safeties have a long time to read whether that's a pass or a play action or a run. Because they have two really good tight ends. Scott Chandler, man, I'm bringing back some names here. Scott Chandler, who was the old head coach for the St. Louis Rams, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, he ran a lot of two tight end personnel also. It was Tony Scheffler and Brandon Pettigrew. It was a similar concept where they would run these stretch plays. Your safeties would be stressed because they would have to figure out, is it play action, is it run? But when you're talking about the best 11 on the field, that offense, you don't have a slot wide receiver in that role. That's what I'm saying. So do they run more 21 personnel going into 2026? I don't know. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. Now, the reason why this is a potential concern for me is because if you look at their roster construction, they bring in Torian. Oh, by the way, Tymaine Purcell was the highest rated skill position in this wide receiver class. He's also a Polynesian tight end. I think he's either from California or Hawaii. But he's a 4-star. And so he's just the name that I would put on a watch list. I'm not saying draft him, just put him on a watch list. He's not going to get playing time this year with the two guys in front of him. But, JKS is still there for one more year after this. Tymaine Purcell could be a player that is attractive. Just put him on your watch list. All right, so talking about personnel, the running back position, in my opinion, also leans itself to a lot of play action, stretch, trying to trick a defense, because you bring in Adam Muhammad, the thumper, backing up Jonah Coleman in Washington. He's 220 plus pounds and he can carry the rock. You could, if you're a conservative head coach and offensive coordinator, and I still need to dive into their new offensive coordinator, I could see a world in which we say, we're going to give Jonah Coleman the ball 20 times a game, and we're going to run play action off of that. Kendrick Raphael last year was not a bad player for them. Kendrick Raphael was not a bad player for Cal last year. Obviously, Adam Muhammad, he was probably 220, 225 pounds plus. brings a little bit more of that thump. But so for that reason, I think that there's a chance that this offense relies heavily on the run to set up the pass. Just think about Andrew Luck at Stanford. As talented as Andrew Luck was, that was still an offense that ran through, I think, Bryce Love. Was it Bryce Love? If I remember correctly, it was somebody. All I know is Jim Harbaugh is still running the ball there. And so how their offense is structured is going to be really important. Now, that's Adam Muhammad. The reason why I think that this offense could be more run heavy than you'd expect for a player of JKS's caliber is because it's not just Adam Muhammad. If we're going to start hey, let's shoot from deep, let's mention Carter Vargas. Carter Vargas from UC Davis. I'm going to bring up his video here in a second. Carter Vargas from UC Davis had 500-yard receiving, 10 receptions last year, averaged nearly 7 yards per rush. He reminds me a little bit of I don't know why players always remind me of this guy, but Rachaad White. Remember Rachaad White at Arizona State when he was sharing the backfield with Chip Trainium before Chip Trainium said, I'm going to go play linebacker at Ohio State, before he said, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm going to go play running back at Toledo. That backfield there for what was it, Herm Edwards? Great backfield, Chip Trainium and Rachaad White. Carter Vargas reminds me a little bit of Rachaad White. All right, I'm going to pull him up. I don't have a good sense for who people are talking about just yet. So I don't know if Carter Vargas is a player that we're already talking about in the college fantasy community or not. But he's not a bad player in his own right. And I think I got to look this up, but I think he was a four-star running back in the transfer portal. That means that they think that this guy had some juice and he had some options. He presents a little bit of a more explosive, lateral, shifty player to complement Adam Muhammad. But the reason why I like him, and look, remember Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech throwing those wheel routes down the field to Jahmyr Gibbs? You see Carter Vargas doing it there for UC Davis. The reason why I like Carter Vargas here is because he presents this shiftier option in he's 210 pounds. He's 210 pounds. So, again, that's like Rachaad White's MO. He was a bigger athletic player, couldn't do everything. But this is a player like if you find him in the primary role, which he won't be at Washington, he could put up RB1 numbers. He could easily put up RB1 numbers. You see him getting the breakaway here. So Carter Vargas, for me, and again, I don't know if people are talking about him just yet. I love that little Dicky freestyle for with Sway in the morning. I don't know if people are talking about Carter Vargas from UC Davis just yet, but I'm going to be talking about him. If nobody's talking in the 15th round of your supplemental drafts, a player that's that explosive at that size, who can catch the football, who should be in an explosive offense there in Cal. Oh, I really like that. I really like that. If we're talking about shoot from deep, give me Carter Vargas. I think he's going to be a top. I think I can definitely lock him in to the top 50 at the running back position for me going in C2C in C2C leagues. The running back position is weak. The running back position is weak right now in college football. Who's the number one running back in college football? A lot of people would say a freshman. Some people would say that there's a freshman in the running for that position, whether it be Savion Hitter or someone else. I probably would have Justice Haynes, but there's just not a lot of sure things. Speaking of Adam Muhammad himself is a top 20 running back. I think that Carter Vargas is a top 50 because he presents a 3-down skill set in a 210-pound package. If he really is 210 pounds, that's what he's listed at. And that's why he reminds me a little bit of Rashad White. So we can shoot from deep. And already here for first episode coming back in 2026, and Carter Vargas is a player that I'm going to have rostered anywhere. All right, have we covered everybody? JKS, I've got quarterback 1. Adam Muhammad and Carter Vargas. This is, I think, an underrated running back tandem. If a coach said, hey, we want to run the ball 55, 60% of the time, they have the talent to do it between these two. And Adam Muhammad can get, I know he's a big thumper, but Adam Muhammad can catch the ball too. He's not Jahmyr Gibbs, but could he be Ramondre Stevenson coming out of the backfield? Yeah, I think so. Carter Vargas definitely could. So that's, in addition to adding 2 tight ends and having this running backfield, I'm like, if they wanted to be more conservative, they could be more conservative in 2026. Especially since I don't think that they have a true third wide receiver on the outside. Ian Strong, natural outside receiver. Chase Hendricks, natural slot wide receiver. Who is that third guy? Is it going to be Cooper Perry, the transfer from Oregon? Maybe. But I don't think that he presents a better option than having Dorian Thomas and Mason Minnie on the field. You can present multiple looks when you do that. You don't know if you're going to run or pass. So I can't wait to see spring ball get here, because are they running that 2 tight end personnel? I'm hypothesizing here just based on what they look like they have. They could. So that's Cal, man. That's Cal. Their personnel is definitely better than last year. I don't think that they have a Jacob DeJesus go get, 119 receptions. Is that what he had last year? Hold on, I want to look that up. I'm trying to see if I remember that correctly. He had 108 receptions. 1,030 yards, and 6 TDs, including the game-winning TD against my adopted team, the Louisville Cardinals. Here, had to go see JKS. So we're not going to see somebody get 110 receptions, but could Chase Hendricks be an 80 reception guy for 800 yards? And, Ian Strong be in that 500 to 600 yard mark? And then both of the tight ends be in the 300 yard range? I think that could be a possibility. So let me know in the comments if you liked a breakdown like this. If it's your first time tuning into any college fantasy football content, I would like to know that too. We probably got to get a move on. The spring is going to be here soon, and we're going to be doing freshman drafts, and we got to figure out what players to draft. And so I probably need to do 2 or 3 of these teams at a time. So if you have a thought on who we should cover next, you can let me know that too. This was a good first run. I'm going to get all the music and the transitions. We're going to get that a little bit better the next time we come out. Until then, peace, everybody.